You might look at the Hiboy P6 and see a typical electronic bicycle, or e-bike as we tend to call them. And yes, it is one of those, but really it's more of a moped, and what it wants to be is a dirt bike. I'm Chris Wook, and this is Make Use Of Reviews from MakeUseOf.com. Today we're going to see if the Hiboy P6 is any one of those, or if it's actually good at being all of them. Is it Hiboy or is it Hiboy? Hiboy would sound cooler, but I bet it's Hiboy. Anyway, the Hiboy P6 comes 85% assembled, and that means, yeah, you need to attach a few things. Namely, the front wheel, the handlebars, the saddle, and the pedals. Don't worry about having any tools around though, because all the tools you need to put this bike together are included in the box. Most of the time when you take a bike out of the box, the parts are pretty separate. You take out the front wheel, you take out the pedals, you take out the saddle. Here, everything was strapped together, which meant you had to lift the entire package out of the box at once. And since the bike weighs 65 pounds, that's not the easiest thing to do on your own while also trying to keep the box in place. I managed it, but it wasn't easy. That wasn't the only trouble I had with this installation either. I'm not sure if the bike was actually packaged this way, or if this somehow happened during transit, but the non-drive crank arm worked its way through the spokes of the front wheel because it was set to that side of the bike. So when I took the bike out of the box, not only did the front wheel have a broken spoke, but it was out of true, which made reviewing the bike a little difficult. You might notice I don't have a whole lot of footage showing me putting the bike together, and that's because for a while there I thought I might have to send it back. Now regarding that broken spoke, there are plenty of people out there who happily received their P6 and never had an issue like that, so I'm assuming it's a one-off incident. Still, just in case, you might want to thoroughly inspect before you take the bike out of the box, just in case you do need to send it back. The P6 is powered by two things, either your legs or the 750 watt Bafang hub motor. We'll talk about that a little while later, but for now, we'll look at the rest of the specs. In addition to that motor, you get a 9-speed Shimano Altus rear derailleur along with shifters. The brakes are a different story. I haven't heard of the brand that makes either the brake calipers or the levers, though fortunately at least the rotors are 180 millimeters, not smaller. That gives you some stopping power, though it's trickier because these are mechanical disc brakes, not hydraulic disc brakes. I'm not sure of the brand of the front hub or the rims, but these are 26-inch wheels and they come with 4-inch fat tires. These are actually Moped tires. They're labeled Moped right on the sidewall. The fork is also a brand I've never heard of. There's actually no branding on it, but it's a hydraulic fork and you do get a preload adjustment on the left that you can kind of adjust to your weight and a lockout or compression adjustment on the right. Some of the way through there, you'll be able to adjust the compression a little bit, but if you turn it fully clockwise, you lock the front fork out, which makes climbing a little bit easier. I can't find anywhere that Hiboy specifies the travel of the fork, but I'm gonna guess it's about 120 millimeters. Moving on to the battery, this is a 48 volt, 13 amp hour waterproof battery. And while the capacity isn't all that big, it does help keep the weight on the lower side. This bike weighs in at about 65 pounds. Looking at range, Hiboy estimates that a person weighing around 143 pounds could go anywhere from 50 to 62 miles using the pedal assist modes, and that a person of the same weight could go 25 to 30 using the throttle powered fully electric mode that makes this bike so fun. Now, of course, you're gonna have to adjust that for your weight, also for how you ride the bike. You can also do some things like, for example, put it in zero assist mode when you're going downhill to save some battery power and extend that range a little bit. Charge time is about 6 to 7 hours, which isn't ideal for long trips in the woods where you want to charge up quickly in between rides, but it's ideal for a commute as you can charge the battery up while you're at your workplace. This is even easier thanks to the removable battery, which you can secure on the bike using a key, which feels like an interesting novelty, even though I'm sure this is already on 99% of e-bikes by now. Finally, you don't have to worry about getting caught out in the rain, at least for a little bit, as the battery is IPX4 waterproof. That means you can have it out in sprinkles, but you don't want to just go chucking it into the lake. I mean, unless you really hate it, or yourself. In case you're not familiar, there are two main types of motors on e-bikes. You have hub drive and mid drive. This is a hub drive motor, meaning that the rear wheel is directly powered. A mid-drive motor, on the other hand, helps you push extra power through the cranks, basically acting like you have robot legs. Now, both have their pros and cons. A hub motor is nice if you want to use a throttle like this bike has, but it also makes pedaling feel a little strangely. Basically, there's no assistance to the actual pedaling, so when you start off, you're pedaling a pretty heavy bike, then you feel the motor come alive and it sort of pushes you along. This feeling does take a while to get used to, because it's pedal, 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 wait, push. You basically have to get used to anticipating when that power is going to come from a pedal stroke. Now that sounds strange, but I'd say it took me about an hour to get used to it, and after that, I don't think I ever thought about it again. There's another reason for that, but we'll get to that later. The Hiboy P6 has 5 different assist modes, well, actually 6. 0 offers no assistance, while 1 through 5 offer increasing levels of pedal assist. You might be tempted to just start at the highest level and figure you have the power available when you need it, but because of that hub motor, that means you're going to take a couple pedal strokes and then this thing is really going to kick in behind you, which you may not be expecting at first. It's a lot better to start at 3 or lower, and then as you need more speed or power, increase it from there. Also, don't forget the ability to decrease the assist level, because there are going to be times when you want that, specifically going downhill. I felt the motor pushing against braking, essentially kind of giving like shove, 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 shove in the back while going downhill. Lowering the assist level will stop that. Those higher assist modes might feel a little like overkill on flat sections or downhill, but when you start climbing, they make you feel like a superhero. I was doing 10 miles an hour up climbs that you'd have to walk on any other bike, and even some e-bikes. It makes that feel great. And that said, I haven't even mentioned the funnest part yet, which is forgetting the pedals and just using the throttle. Though I will say, this has a lot of torque, so be careful. You might want to start pedaling first and then start using the throttle to maintain speed, because this will loop out on you really quickly. Ask me how I know. You also want to be careful with those assist modes while you're moving the bike around inside, because if you touch that throttle a little bit, the bike will happily go whizzing off on its own. Again, ask me how I know. While I was testing this bike, I noticed an interesting sticker on the fork that warns against any sort of free ride, dirt jump, downhill, or aggressive riding in general. But that did make me want to take it out on my local trails and see what it can do. I will remind you, I was riding this missing one front spoke and the front wheel was getting pretty out of true, so I had to take it a little easy, but still, I had a lot of fun. Starting out in the lower assist modes, pedaling up hills and down hills across fields was fun, but it wasn't long before I started pushing to the higher assist modes. Keep in mind, on a trail, even pushing up towards assist mode 3, you pick up speed quickly. It's nice for climbing, but I started to get a little sketched out, and that was before I started using the throttle, which by the way is even more fun. Now, you're not getting a Sur-Ron X for just over $1,000. That would be insane. And this is far from even a motored up downhill mountain bike like a lot of those are, but you can still have some e-moto style fun on a very, very low budget, if you keep in mind that this is not meant to do that at all. So is the Hiboy P6 a jack-of-all-trades bike that can do anything, or is it just a bike having an identity crisis? I don't know the answer, and I don't really care, because it's really fun, and it's surprisingly affordable for how much fun you can have with it. It's not perfect by a long shot, and if you're going to ride this seriously, you're going to want to put some upgrades into it, like tires and brakes at a minimum, and then maybe a better fork and things like that, depending on how hard you want to ride it. Keep in mind there are limitations. You can't do everything with this, but for the price, it can do a lot more than other bikes can. Do I recommend this to you? That's pretty easy. If you are looking for an e-bike and don't have one and this seems fun, buy it. If you have a better, more expensive e-bike and you're just watching this to pick on people who want the cheap one, don't buy it. And that's about it for this one. For specs and data and eye entertainment, go check out the written article over at makeuseof.com. You'll find a link down in the description. Thank you to Hiboy for sending the review unit, and as always, thank you for watching.